Hello and welcome to the GMS Magazine channel. I am Paco Garcia. Today I have Untold Encounters of the Random Kind, 1,000+ encounters for any tabletop RPG, including 5e. This is from the same people who build and create Loke Battlemats. And damn, is this going to be worth the amount of money that you have to spend to get your hands on it? Welcome to the GMS Magazine RPG review videos. I did the unbooking of this book a few weeks, a couple of months ago, and I was really impressed by what I saw. Impressed enough that even if it is just encounters, I really wanted to delve in and read the whole thing to see what they're like. Disclaimer, I haven't read every single encounter, but I have definitely read enough to have a very good idea as to what they do and how they do it and what they are good for or not. So I've read about 45% of them, which is a lot, I can promise you. So, book production is very good. You might have seen it in the unbooking. It's a hardback, full color, really well bound. And the only little tiny niggle I have with it is that it is cut here in the middle and the illustrations and the banners don't get straight to the very middle. It's not cut properly. This would be a little bit tiny furthering, or there should be a little bit less bleeding in the layout file. Is that a big deal? Absolutely no. It's just something that niggles me, but it is just that. It's a little niggle. So, what's inside the book? A lot of beautiful illustrations. As in, a lot of beautiful illustrations throughout, which is great because it helps give a nice feel to the whole encounter set and what they can be or not about. But most importantly, if we take a look at the table of content, well, firstly, you can get a free digital copy if you buy the book, which I have already claimed, so it doesn't matter. This code is completely useless to you now. But this has been divided, this book, into what the introduction and mechanics are going to be, because this is meant to be a generic for any kind of role-playing game, but it also comes with a 5e conversion table, which is quite detailed, and then we'll go into it in just a second. But inside the book, it is divided in certain sections like town encounters, wilderness encounters, and dungeons encounters. And then there are some example of 5e adventures that can be designed just by using this book in the way that I will describe in a minute. Inside each of them, well, let's take a look first of all to what this book is and what it isn't. This book is encounters. Each encounter is just that. It's an adventure seed. This is not to give you an adventure every encounter. In fact, you're meant to be mixing more than one encounter to build your adventure. So they don't come necessarily with detailed stats, with arcs, or with beginning, middle, or ends. It just tells you something like, you meet this person who is doing so and so and so, and you can have a conversation about so and so and so, or they have this problem with these spiders here or with these zombies, and they could do with the help, and or this a person that is a merchant on whatever, and it is easy or difficult to get along with them. They are encounters in the purest sense of the word, which to me is what makes them really useful, because you can do with them whatever you want. And that is the idea of the book. If you're expecting that this is, that says in here, over 1,000 random encounters and you're going to get over 1,000 random adventures, no. Adventures are meant to be built by joining together more than one of these encounters. So I just want to make that very, very clear, because I know that some people have been disappointed when buying this book because they didn't feel that it was going to be all that useful within their own campaigns or for their own systems. This is what it does, and it does it really well. So, how to use the book, you get a very nice description with all the terms and terminology about what things are meant to be. You're given regions, and with regions you're given tables, and with tables you roll your dice, and then that's going to give you a reference, a title for an encounter that you can go and use. And each encounter is going to have all you need to know if the enemies are going to be easy, overwhelming, if they're going to be within a wilderness close to a town, so on and so forth. The mechanics are very well detailed with what the damage is going to be. And again, because this is meant to be a generic book, not for one single system, they have left it also very generic. So the damage can be minor, light, major, or lethal. The difficulty is simple, routine, difficult, very difficult, or near impossible. The challenge is easy, standard, elite, boss, or overwhelming. So then you can adapt it to however your adventure is going to go and how it's meant to be fitting within your own system and game. So from that point of view, yes, there is a little work that you're going to have to do, but most of it is done, and it will only take you a little bit of tweaking. It's all it can do, because otherwise they will need to publish a book per game, and that, yeah, not going to happen. Definitely not going to happen. It shouldn't even happen. So one thing, and is that they have color-coded a number of things, which is quite nice, in purple, green, and dark brown, or burgundy, or reddish, or whatever you can see on your screen, because it's going to depend on your monitor. And then you have notes in green, blue, and gray, with this style of text box in green is displaying some additional content, additional information. These in blue are examples of what's being described. We will see this in the rules an awful lot. And these in little brown are descriptions for 5e adventures. So the whole thing has been very well thought out to aid visual referencing of the book. So 5e mechanics. You get mechanics for 5e are based on your average party level, your APL. And depending on your APL, you're going to multiply or divide it by a number to make it fit with the difficult, easy, overwhelming, so on and so forth that we've taken a look at in a minute. And you get the damage, so you can make your conversion, the difficulty for your saving throws, for instance, the challenge, and then the enemy types, group sizes, and the NPC types. Quite simple, but also quite effective, because they give you examples for everything. So for instance, the challenge for an easy challenge for a party of 4 people, which is the average that this game has considered. The challenge rating, it's an 8 times multiple the average party level, rounded to the nearest, whether it's up or down. You decide. So for example, for an APL of 11, that's the number of levels of all 4 characters put together. That would be a CR of 1. If you want to make it the standard, then it would be a CR of 3, so on and so forth. That makes the whole thing quite easy to do, which is brilliant to me. Now, Town Encounters, where this book actually shines is in the fact that it helps you build your town, your wilderness, your dungeon. It doesn't just give you, I'm going to show you, this table here, and that's it. Not at all. In fact, what it does from the beginning is to help you build your environment. So for instance, in terms of Town Encounters, it's not just towns that they are describing as a monolithic structure. No. It gives you how many different boroughs or wards each town could potentially have. So you could have your castle ward, your cemetery, docks, guild quarter, high street, lanes, noble quarter, rural quarter, slums, and the end city. You can use as many or as few of these as you wish in order to build your town. Say that you want to have a capital city, then it would make sense to have everything, but obviously if it's not close to a river or the sea, then having the docks would make zero sense whatsoever, and maybe, just maybe, if it is in the desert, maybe you don't want to have the Undercity, for example. But it is up to you how you build it. Or you can roll your die, you know, your T20, and see what happens. As I was saying, also, it helps you decide, you know, wilderness crossovers, what types of town, what kind of people are inside. So this is just as much a world building tool as it is an encounter tool, which is, yeah, it is so good. It is so, so good. Now, each word is also described briefly in just a couple of pages, but very, very neatly. The writing is good enough. A little bit more editing would have been useful because there are some places where commas would do very nicely, but then they're missing. There are some words that have not been chosen properly, and some articles that, you know, changing then for dan, that sort of thing. It's not massive. It's just a handful of them throughout the book, but it's something that I feel I should tell you about just in case you see them. Again, they're not going to break the magic of the book at all. The commas, yeah, I wish there were a few more commas here or there to help the reading, but other than that, the writing is to the point, is quite specific, and it is very, very helpful. So the little tiny niggles I find, they're not enough to ruin the experience in the slightest. And this is a technical manual sort of thing, so it doesn't really matter too much. You are meant to be the one creating the environment, the atmosphere for the whole thing. So this is to the point, which is great. So they do exactly the same for everything. For the castle ward, and you get all of these encounters. I think it's 64 of them, which is great. In the cemetery, again, what kind of population, the crime, what kind of utilities, when you can use it, when is not a good idea to use it, how many encounters. There's a tiny little table. See how many encounters, assuming that you want to roll this and just see what happens, which is a great way of starting an adventure outline. Again, another 64 encounters for the cemetery. Docks, exactly the same. Another 64 encounters for the docks. Guild quarter, so on and so forth. And then we get the encounters from A to Z or Z, wherever you are. Now, why grouping the encounters alphabetically? Because if they had to put them within each section, they would be harder to find, and they wouldn't be really as approachable, I suppose is the word. So I like that they've done it this way. You know, cities, all the encounters for the cities. Now, as you can see, encounters vary in length. They're all quite short because they are just encounter. But if we take a look, for example, to our helping hand, which is the first one, a citizen, easy, commoner, NPC, there you have it in whatever game you want to play it, sat on the floor, calls over the characters. They have turned an anchor on the uneven ground and are very keen to get home, away from the dangers of the district. Characters may earn more coin, but they must carry their new patient who wants to go home right now. It's an encounter. Are they going to fall for it? Is this a thief that's going to trick them? Is this going to be a mega noble, even though it says in here easy commoner NPC? Maybe it's just in disguise. Who is this person and why? That is how you're meant to be using these encounters. And that is how they work beautifully. Now, once we move back to the town encounters, then we get town adventures and how to plan them. We get from how to roll the adventure theme, the instigator, so what motivates the adventure drive, the antagonists, what complications, what stages or how many you're going to have, and what districts you're going to be using. And then we go on to stage easy, normal, hard, end, and then an example of the adventure with its little map. And it's a very short adventure. And then another one. And then we go into the wilderness. So having these two little adventures, and these adventures have been generated using this system for these encounters, yeah, this works. You know, for when you want to include something small in your campaign, or when a couple of your friends are not coming, but the other three are coming, and you just need something quick that you can play right away, you can generate it just like that. If we jump onto the wilderness, the same thing is going to be repeated in the sense of what sort of encounters you're going to find, what of the frequency, the regions, and they're going to be the Arctic region, desert, forest, plains, mountains, seashore, swamp and jungle. And then we get boons. Boons are for both wilderness and your dungeons, perks that you can find, like treasure or different animals or herbs for your potions or what have you. There you go. And then your encounters. Once again, exactly the same thing. Loads of them. As you can see, the illustrations are just so beautiful and throughout the whole book. As in very, very good. Every single one of them. I can imagine some of them are going to be stock imagery, but I have to say, very well chosen, so I'm okay with it. And at the end, again, a couple of adventures. How to generate them. And a couple of adventures. Beer Run and Parched. And then we get to the dungeons, and they've paid a huge amount of detail to the dungeons. It's like they know that we like dungeoneering or something like that. But they've done it really well. Once again, world building, how to build your dungeon, what kind of dungeon, how to use it, what kind of dungeon encounters you can get. The whole shebang. Which I love so much. So much. This is brilliant. It even gives you a little cool idea as to how to generate your dungeon map based on rolling your dice and just seeing where they fall. And that will give you an idea as to how many areas you want to have, where they're going to be in relation to each other, so on and so forth. It's great. It's just useful. This is meant to be sparking your imagination. And that you really should do. There's also some doors and traps. Doors, enemies. I mean, look. Something that I remember my friend Roberto Micheri doing a video for me for the channel. And one of the pieces of advice that he gave was, use the environment. You have to use your environment a lot more. And this really does that so well. So as you can see, they really have paid a lot of attention to dungeoning, which is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Traps, as I mentioned. And then some adventures. Of course, being Loke Battlemats, their maps are just delightful. And if you don't know them yet, I thoroughly recommend that you take a look at the other videos with the maps and some of the Loke Battlemats productions, because they are just fantastic. Really, really amazing. this is one of the books that review themselves, because I don't even need to tell you how good this is. You've seen it. You may like it or not, but this is amazing. The level of attention to detail, the level of thought that's gone into this, and how useful it can be, as I said, not just to design adventures, but world building itself is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'm not entirely sure how much it retails for. I wouldn't be surprised if it was about 30 to 40 pounds, $40 to $45, give or take. But this, everyone should have it. Trust me. If you like fantasy, medieval type adventures, this, you should have it. And the only thing that would make this even better is if they had something like this, a whole series for science fiction, science fantasy, horror, so on and so forth. And I really hope this will not be the last book of this kind they make. Everyone should have this book. Trust me. Everyone. Let me know what you think. If you have already read it, if you've used it, how would you use it? Because the freedom this gives is enormous. But until the next time, thank you very much indeed for being there, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care.